I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. And we have Laura Job here tonight, too, from Ward Number 1, one of the council members. I like to start these meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that's going to be led by Mike Mortensen, a combat Marine veteran, and who is a pillar of our community. It's an honor to have him lead us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mike. What I'd like to do, a little bit different from the last time, I still have note cards and I have pens, but what I'd like to do is have people, this meeting is for the people. It's not for me, it's not for Laura, it's not for the mayor, it's not for any other council member. It's for you people. So thank you for coming here tonight. Another great crowd. I think we would have probably had a few more. We still got almost two-thirds of what we had last time. I think we would have probably had more if we would have been on the Facebook of the city instead of just on the calendar. There was a lot of people who did not see that, and so we were a little bit shy on that. And I don't know why that is, but we will figure that out to see if we can get that back on the Facebook page of the city. Also, too, as I said, this is for the people. I'm just here to kind of facilitate this. I'm not here to direct it in any way. This is completely open to you people. I want you to provide the agenda and feel free to speak. As this goes on, we will probably find a different venue to hold this meeting because it sounds like they don't want me to probably have it here anymore. So, but we'll double check that. We'll make sure that's clarified because one of the comments was that it was too big of a meeting to have located here in the council chambers. That was one of the items that came up. With that, I do have one written down question. I didn't announce that there was note cards to because I would like people to ask questions. But if you don't want to, you can write it on a note card and give it to me and I'll read it for you. So with that, I think I'm gonna, excuse me. I'll read the first question here that was given to me. It said, projects are being done to bring people into Fergus Falls. The prairie grass stays around the lakes and ponds because it's easier to maintain. What projects are being done for the people paying the taxes and live in Fergus? That's a question. Now, I would like anybody to have any comments on that, any type of concerns, or to Laura, go right ahead.
I just want to comment that we had a retreat last week Thursday, and it was.
Do you want to come up and speak up here?
Sure.
Then everybody can hear you.
Sure. So we had a retreat last week Thursday. Do you remember? We started with I think 30 items and broke it down to top 6, I think it was. And so one of the top 4 is maintaining our current assets. We have shiny new things, but we have to make sure that we're maintaining what we currently have. So it was kind of, Elle wasn't there, but it was kind of I think these shiny new things, we also have to figure out how we're going to currently and in the future maintain them before we continue to add.
What do you mean maintaining? What things are you maintaining?
So roads, infrastructure. We're working on, phase 2, phase 1. Aqua Center is going to be coming. We have to budget for maintaining that before we decide, okay, we're taking on another big project. Yeah, so going, okay, we've got a lot on the plate right now, and we have to figure out, okay, how can we, number one, get infrastructure and roads going? And that was our number one. Number two was, all right, the financial aspect of, okay, how are we gonna pay for this change that we need to make? Because it's a lot. We all know how the roads are. Yeah. So that was number one for us.
So does the city feel that maintaining these shiny new things is gonna take away from maintaining some of the existing things?
That's where we don't want it to.
So that's
We-
the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Is just going, okay, we have the big wood now. We have the hockey, the hockey arena. There's so many different things now that we have to make sure we are maintaining those, and that we have the financial means to do that before we add any more on.
Not to be facetious or anything, but, it's kind of the analogy that I made. I could invite everybody in this room over to my house for steak and shrimp dinner, but if my stove, my microwave, and my toaster oven don't work, we're not doing very damn well.
Or if they can't even get there without, hitting 5 different potholes.
Point being, we can attract all the people we want to into this town and hope that they're going to settle here and raise their children here, be part of the tax base here. But if they move into this town and they drive down whatever street it is in town and it shakes the fillings out of their mouth, they're gonna go, well, what are we doing here?
Right, right. And that's where, with our retreat, that's where we kind of all came together on that, was, okay, before we decide that we're going to do any additional projects, we have to maintain what we currently have, and be able to keep up with it. And infrastructure, that's a big one. Roads, infrastructure, it's huge. I mean, and we're just getting into that season where we're going to have a lot more coming up.
Laura,
Yeah.
I maybe missed it, but who was at this retreat?
So the council members that were not able to make it, Brent Thompson was not there. Al, you weren't able to make it. Our mayor was there for a period of time, and then we had some department heads there. Yeah. Yeah.
Question, what's it cost to keep to maintain that, Bigwood Center, and how come we're still in the hotel industry, and, are we, subsidizing the rest of the hotels and motels in the town since we're in it and we own it?
That I don't have an answer for you. We have touched on the Big Wood. They, spoke with us at our retreat and just gave us some information on, they have a new manager who's going to be taking over. I don't have a whole lot of info on the Big Wood, but it definitely needs to start generating some revenue.
I mean, if we own it,
Yeah.
why are we in the business? Why are we in the whole, I mean, that'd be just like if Al wanted to start a liquor store in town, and it took the money.
I mean, he'd do really well.
They might get a little upset about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's not fair to the hotels that we have here.
Right. And I don't know how long the city has had the Big Wood.
Long time.
Has it been? Yeah, that I'm not sure about, and I don't know. I don't know a lot about the financial aspect. Just that I know that the city's definitely put some money into it, and we definitely need to bring. It's got to generate some revenue for us. Yeah, and that was one of our top 30 that we talked about.
My question is kind of about the dynamics of the city council.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking to Brett Thompson once, and beside an issue that I wanted him to bring up. He said, oh no, it doesn't work that way. We're given an agenda. And that's what's from the city engineer. We're given an agenda with the items we are to vote on, and then we either vote on up or down, but we do not bring up anything. Is that how it works?
No. Well, I'm not going to say no, but definitely if you have concerns, bring it to any one of the council members, and from there, they need to be reaching out to the department head who would facilitate that. For example, for me right now, I've been working on just getting a crosswalk on South what is that, Cascade?
Yeah.
I always forget what it is, and I live right by there. I'm sorry.
I only know why it's, what the name is, because there's a cemetery there.
Oh, see, right. So a crosswalk on South Cascade, and I need to go through the proper channels in order to get that going. Once, if it needs to come to the agenda, yes, we're given an agenda about 3 days in advance about what we're going to be discussing and voting on. And, then it's up to us council members as to, are we going to accept this agenda, or are there anything that we, want to take off of it? So still continue to raise questions and concerns to your members for sure.
Laura?
Yeah.
I have one question and concern. A number of years ago, I sat up there for a couple terms. Don't blame me for everything, but I worked with one of the best mayors that we ever had. That was Kelly Fergus. So, but we had committee meetings, Public Works Committee meeting and a Finance Committee meeting. And there was council members on each committees. And we met in the morning, and the public was invited. All of a sudden we went to a committee meeting of the whole that meets before the council meeting. And granted, our paper isn't what it was back then, but if there were some items that were coming up and people became aware of them, then they could be at the council meeting, or they could be calling their councilwomen, I'm sorry, both.
No offense.
I'm wondering why that change was made. Is that working or not working? To me, it seems like they walk over there, have the committee of the whole, and then they walk over here and decide what they're gonna do by a public vote or by the vote. So,
Right. We have discussed this about, do we continue with the committee of the whole meeting? And the way that it was presented was kind of, they did the committee of the whole meeting because it gave us some time to look at the agenda and, dig into some of the items. And also it cut down on the time frame of the council meetings. I know that Councilmember Hicks has, stated that, well, we could definitely just go back to having council meetings and, not doing committee of the whole meetings. So it's something we've discussed, not anything that we've, gone any further with, but we've definitely discussed it, and some of us are in agreement with you, definitely.
Well, and I think to add to Mark's point is that it works better for you guys as the council members to do that. But as far as us as residents, we don't have any idea of what's gonna happen then at that council meeting that night. So we have no time frame to either write an email, make a phone call, stop over at our council, whatever, that type of thing. And now with having to fill out that card to be able to speak at a city council meeting, you have no ability to know what's coming up. So I could be speaking about ABC, but you're talking about DEF,
Right. I'm glad that you brought that up about, having to petition to speak before us. Fill out that card, have it in by noon that day. At our retreat, we also did talk about going back to an open forum before the meetings. So look for that. That is, we've had some serious discussion about it. And so I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but it's definitely been on the radar of some of us for sure. Yeah.
So is Fergus Falls hurting for money to fix this stuff? Is that what you're kind of saying? You have to do your assets first rather than the shiny things?
I think what we need to do is focus on what we currently have before we decide that we want to do another big project and put the stress on the taxpayers. So there was a majority of us who went, okay, infrastructure and roads need to happen before, we decide to do phase 2 of the river, or phase 3, I'm sorry, of the riverfront, or, something like that. I'm not saying there's a phase 3, but just as an example. So we have different ways that we have funding for roads. Some of that does come from Majority of that comes from, I believe, the state, correct?
Yeah, there's a percentage of it. During the big debate, I knew exactly the numbers. It's not a whole lot, though.
Right.
Basically, yeah, it's not a whole lot that comes from the state. There's certain portions. For example, that roundabout, I'll come up to the microphone so people want to hear that. For example, the roundabout that was passed, it was a 4-4 vote, and the mayor cast his vote for it. The roundabout that was over by the old BJ's east, I voted against it, and 3 others voted against it because it was actually a county project, from what I understand. That's a county road. In my opinion, if people have to wait just a little bit longer, that's okay at that corner. It's a perfectly fine road compared to our other roads in town. Why would we waste $750,000 on that of our money that we could have got and used in the roads in the city? My comment was, wouldn't it be nice to use that on Cleveland, or it could be used on Union? At least it's a $750,000. That's a pretty good jump on the project. At least the people coming in from Woodland Heights could get something for their annexation. Would be a smooth road to go to work.
No, it should go on Oak Street.
Oh, we're not going to listen to Mike tonight. But I'm just saying, we have to prioritize these things. You know, our roads are not buttery smooth. And we need to put this in perspective and what it needs to be. So we basically helped the county out with $750,000 to do a roundabout out there that really isn't urgent. See, these are the things, in my opinion, and I don't know what it is in yours. Is this necessary? I would have put it on another road. Yeah.
My question was, what triggered the one west of town?
The one west of town, I think the state was redoing that, and we really don't have a whole lot, from what I understand, a whole lot to say in that matter, because they're redoing all these different approaches and exits and things like that, and they've got all these, the state ideas.
The 210 bridge.
Yeah.
That they
Yeah,
just
I was
proposed to us.
just curious.
Yeah, that's.
What came up, because is there other audits, if you will?
And, that is a good question about how they came upon, because they had 3 different ideas for the 210. And the top one was the 3 different roundabouts, when you come on and off the interstate, and then Mabel Murphy over to Walmart was the 3rd one. And they just had said in our city council meeting that they've decided on this one. And so I'm not sure if they had, reached out to the community at all. I'm not sure what.
It seemed creative. I've never come off interstate. I've traveled a lot of interstates. I've never come off interstate to a roundabout.
I really haven't either. I know there's that one in Moorhead now on 75. That's kind of funky over there, and I don't really, it was.
Yeah, they're all around.
Yeah, when you're coming into DL, but it's not like off of an interstate. I'm not familiar with that. And I think too that, before Laura and I were on the council, that was, kind of in the process, the way it sounds. So I wasn't privy to how that was, decided. I'm assuming, yep, go ahead.
Well, and I think the roundabout that you're speaking about off by the YMCA out there is also a matter of perspective too. I mean, I know where you live, I know where you work, you go nowhere near that in the morning. Every single morning, 6 days a week, I'm at that intersection. And the amount of traffic that comes on that road coming from out of town, you can end up waiting at that intersection 5, 6, 7 minutes. And I realize 5, 6, 7 minutes isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it is 5, 6, 7 minutes. I gotta leave 10 minutes earlier to go to work, so I know I can get through that intersection.
I understand that completely. Because when they were talking about putting a roundabout in front of where Casey's is by the RTC. I think that would be a nightmare. So then you would get it there, plus you're going to get it when you're going home where you live. And, and they were talking about the school putting a school there too, an elementary school.
That is off the table.
That is off the table now? Okay.
They've
Good.
created-
I'm glad to hear that.
They did have a committee meeting, one of their buildings committee
park area there then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as of Thursday, they've decided, I think they're entertaining 3 different locations right now. I want to say it's 3 that they're entertaining. They have taken the RTC off.
Good. Because, just my opposition to that in that location was, number one, they had talked about a roundabout. Number two, if a school did go there, we would never, ever collect property tax that I would, not in my lifetime, if we ever got rid of the RTC to a developer. At least that person would pay property tax, and we know the school's not going to. The other issue that I had with it, with the government center right there, there's people who are probably going into that government center that should not be near a school.
Well, and I think if you add to it too, just the busyness of that road, I would not
Yeah.
think that would be a prime location for an open.
Oh, very, very tough, I think. Very tough, I think.
They would have outgrown it right away.
Mike?
That's the thing, Al, though, that the residents should know that if the new council members had not come on board here in 2022, that school would be there right now. It was on track to do that. It was on track.
I think you're right there, Mike. And, the council had a meeting with the school board, and I was fairly vocal at that meeting, and I think others were too. So hopefully that helped change the mind there. Yes.
When you're talking about new schools, I mean, if people are paying attention to what's happening in St. Paul and what our schools are bringing in through the state and how it's affecting children and how schools are becoming very toxic for children, why are people in Fergus entertaining the thought of putting money into a school when they might want to start thinking about alternatives to a toxic public school system?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there is a possibility that from the state, they're bringing in something where if parents don't agree to have their children transitioned, the state will be able to take their children. So they're thinking about that. It's in California, it's in Oregon, Washington, and we have the bluest state. I mean, look at what's going on here. Why are we talking about funding more, putting more money into public schools that are doing this to kids? It is child abuse. And we can talk about what's been going on, those of us who are going to school board meetings right now. And if you could imagine, and there are people here who know firsthand, the number of filthy books, and they have read them at school board meetings, what is going on over at Fergus in KSS and the alternative high school and the books they have there. I would say, think twice about putting any money into any more schools.
Yeah. Where people are homeschooling.
Right.
And if does anybody have any other comments to that?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Bob.
I'm Bob Noah. I've been here about 17 years in the county. I've been involved in unorthodox ways in the city. I've really cared about what's happened, and this lady bringing up the different ideologies is really a major problem in our country. Minnesota has turned so radical. I've been paying attention to it, and I don't have children in the school age anymore, but 30 years ago I got involved, ran for school board in my hometown, and I didn't win, but I brought up the subjects of violence and drugs in the school based on my own experience as a kid. And I've seen it multiply and escalate to a point where our children, society's children, is not going to stand a chance if we don't start focusing on, like you say, the materials that they're reading, the different ideologies that are being pushed. And I love this meeting, I love this venue, because we're exercising our First Amendment rights, and by exercising we become stronger. And this is the venue that we need to bring these things out in order to protect the children and protect the future of our country. And I think more needs to be said about that.
Go ahead, Wally.
Talking about ideology, if I remember right, Minneapolis just passed a bus up prayer meeting. Well, we could do something. We could also petition so that we have a heads up prayer meeting over loudspeakers every day. That might be something, if we got that going before they have a butts up program.
Explain what you mean. You mean the Muslim prayer call?
You said it, I didn't.
Oh, aren't we supposed to say that?
Did you see the pictures on the paper, in the TV, where they had their butts up and their heads down? That's their prayer group.
But why be rude about that?
Well,
Let them pray.
well, that's fine, except it comes out in loudspeakers now.
Just like the Pledge of Allegiance does.
Well,
Yes,
yes,
I work with people who are Indian and they're totally during the workday.
yes.
So they get extra breaks
No
for
way
that.
that Islam has any time for the Constitution or the United States.
Yeah,
I get it, but just let people be.
Why?
why?
Why? Why does it hurt you?
That brings out
It hurts
more,
us.
It
that
doesn't
brings
take-
out
look at
more
Europe.
stuff for people that don't know the Lord. If we had our prayers
It's noise
over
I-
there.
because
I think
people
what-
hear it.
I think,
Huh?
It's
Yeah.
like 3 in the morning.
From the schools
I-
at this
I just wanna-
point, is it gonna accomplish anything? What, are we attacking it at the right level if we're concerned about this? Withholding funding from Fergus Falls School particularly, is it going to solve that statewide problem?
no,
We have to attack it from a different way, don't we?
I think, we all have to, everybody's got different ideas and different thoughts and what they want to do. I think we have to keep in mind here, too, what is the best for our community? What is the best for Fergus Falls? What is the best for us to move ahead, solve some of these issues? This has gone back for years. And I remember, listening to my father who died 2 years ago. He's 97 years old when he died. And he grew up in a very conservative part of Nebraska. And that whole area was German immigrants. And my dad learned how to speak German, and he knew how to speak English. And I said, Dad, I knew some of these words. He says, I said, how come you never spoke German outside the house? He says, because that's within our own family. And he said, we're Americans. He says, we're no longer in Germany. We decided to come here, and we're Americans now. And he says, yes, I know how to speak German. So do all my friends. But out on the street, we don't do it, just out of respect that we are Americans. And that was his answer to me about that. And, there's respect. It all comes down to respect, you guys. We have to respect here, we have to respect there, we have to respect over there. And if we can all work together in this, then we're going to be good. But we have to kind of keep down this straight and narrow in a way to get these problems solved. And this meeting like this, as we're discussing, that's how we can solve this. I don't want anybody to be upset or mad or angry. That's not what this is about. Our end goal here is to make this community a better place, more open, that we can all visit together and that we can move ahead together. That was just my experience that I had with my own family, and I shared that with you. And it was always fun to listen to my dad talk about what he went through, because he was a child of the Depression and he remembered it very, very well. And he appreciated everything he got because they didn't have much.
I'd like to say something here.
Yep.
I'm not saying you're naive,
Yeah.
saying those things. But the time has come where there is such a forceful attack on the family and on children.
Right.
And I'm for people let them live their lives, let them pray the way they want to, let them live. But once you start forcing me how to say words about who you are and compelling speech, that's not freedom of speech, that's forcing me. And that's what's come upon our society, is that we're being forced into these different ideologies. And when our taxpayer dollars are being funneled in to these different avenues without our consent, I've paid attention to what's going on in our capital, and there is such confusion and such a melee of things going on, it's hard to keep up. So we can't lose sight of, yeah, we need a nice city, we need nice roads, but what about the nice children? What happened to their innocence? And I think if we take our eyes off that and the remedies that they need, then we're misguided and we're not doing them any favor.
I agree with you, Bob. I don't like anybody to be forced into anything. You know, my youngest daughter just graduated last year, so I kind of watched what was going on in school a bit closer. And there was a couple things that came to me that was very disturbing. I'm not going to talk about that, but I know exactly what you're talking about, because they were in a class and forced to listen to somebody, and it was a teacher, which it was that teacher's own opinions, and I had an issue with that. Go ahead.
Just before we get off this subject, I don't know how many of you have read the paper, if you're aware of this, but in knowing that Minnesota is fine with us being a transgender sanctuary and how it can come into schools, you can have people who are not medically backed, like counselors or whomever, who, if they think kids are gender dysphoric, they can be moved towards seeing doctors. And I don't know if you're aware of this, we have a young doctor, she's new in the community, I believe she was born here in Fergus, and she, in an article in the paper, has said she is offering cross-sex hormone therapy right over here at the hospital. And for 2.5 months, I went back and forth trying to get answers and to find out if she is offering them to children. I have been totally stonewalled from the hospital clinic. They will not answer that question. So will we possibly have children who are identified in a school, because that's okay now, and without the knowledge of their parents, could they possibly be going over to the hospital here or clinic and starting to get these medications that will make them sterile? And we know that transgender, right now, the attempted suicide rate is upwards of 50%. This is not taking care of children. This is child abuse.
I can't imagine the clinic or the hospital treating a minor without parental consent.
It's in the law right now. It's in the law.
And that's coming from a retired deputy sheriff here.
Yeah, it's out there.
You know, you would know the law better than I would
Well,
on that.
and I've
but-
been removed for many, many years, but, you know, you can't sneeze over there without them, you know, wanting to, you know, track where it's at. So I would have to look into that a lot, you know.
It's there.
We're working on it.
So, well, go ahead. I mean,
I know this, we could talk about this all night, but I have one other question. You know, I apologize for breaking in here, but, I live down in Stanton, and I saw the old dairy plant, you know, go, and it's gorgeous. And when I saw you read about the budget, got the budget papers over there, I didn't see anything in the forecast, or haven't heard anything in the forecast of sewer and water going in there or development, because that would be tax revenue that we could use for other places.
yeah. Mark, did you have any numbers on that?
You got enough time?
Al, have you guys discussed anything with the Port Authority?
No. You know, and there again, like I said, I've been.
It's beautiful right now.
Oh, sure it is.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
it's prime land.
I know that, you know, we have also, what we had talked about in the Port Authority there as far as, you know, shovel ready and what that means and this sort of thing. you know, that we don't have a whole lot of things ready for that. And I think what the issue is it costs so much money to put it in. I don't think there's money to do that. You know, it has to come from someplace. And here, you know, and it's one of these things. If you don't do it, you're not going to get it. And if you do it, you hope you're going to get revenue on that.
Right. I mean, at some point in time, I don't think we can leave it as a park.
No.
Because if you're going down Stanton, where would the water and sewer and
Well-
septic that come down?
The thing too is what I want to make a comment, and I just know this because of what was told to me. You know, like what was done in another city. The hospital there had donated $10 million to a wellness center, and that was on hold, or they were working on that from 17, I believe, and 2017, and then that city generated, I think it was probably what, 20 or 30 million dollars privately in that neighborhood. And now it was this year, I believe, that they're going to break ground on it, and it's right next to the lake. They're going to have their wellness center, they're going to have pool, they're going to have courts, they're going to have ice, and they're going to have all this stuff to draw people and to have for the community. And then they're also going to have, I believe it's high-end condos, real estate developed just down the shore a little ways. You know, you get this all together, and that's kind of a winning program. But that is starting with about probably $30 to $40 million. Well, where are we going to get $30 to $40 million? You know, we can't generate that. The taxpayer is paying enough. And no, don't get me started on that. So I think, you know, the problem is we're limited. And in my opinion, and that's why I live in Ward 3. I walk to Ward 3. I talk to people in Ward 3. Of course, not everybody agrees with me. That's fine. My wife doesn't either. But the thing is, we have to realize that we can't afford all this stuff. I think it just came up. What was it? The pool or aquatic center, what do you call it? It's going to be 26 years to pay for that. So what other thing that's shiny that's going to be held in front of us that we're going to want in that 26 years?
I see that as a cost, where how do we generate the other side? How do we
Exactly.
stimulate the income?
Exactly. And, you know, I think with that, you know, we've really got to go after business and industry. We got to keep the ones that are here. And, you know, there's a very interested group in that would be looking into that sort of development too, of getting business in here and getting the existing businesses what would complement them. You know, as far as some of these special interest projects, let's say the pool, you know, I'm going to call it a pool because that's what Dave Lindig refers to it as. And Dave Lindig, I don't know if you know who he is. He was a swimming coach here. He was a Phi Ed teacher, and he was a fabulous guy. I had him in school, so, you know, he's older. But I spoke to Dave about I called it an aquatic center, and he said it's not an aquatic center, it's a pool. He said an aquatic center is what the University of Minnesota has on their campus. And he says that is an aquatic center. He says, I talked to over 400 legislators to get that done. He was a huge push on that. And he got that to happen at the University of Minnesota. And that's when I was actually going to the U. They still had Memorial Stadium standing, and they built that aqua center, or that aquatic center right in the middle of that Memorial Stadium. I still remember looking at it. But I liked football a lot better than swimming, so I hate to see the old stadium go. But he worked very hard from Fergus Falls, Minnesota, to get that in the cities. And what he had told me, he reached out, and nobody responded to him. Here is a guy with unbelievable experience in his trade, we're missing out. We have to go to these people.
Those champions.
Exactly. And we need to reach out to those ones who've done this. And that's what happens is, you know, if we could get together, if there's a, you know, special interest group A, B, and C, okay, we're going to get together and talk about A, B, and C are going to get together. But you know what? This year it's going to be for A. And then next year it might, or in 3 years it might for B. And then another 3 years it might be for C. You know, it seems like we get tore apart and then we get all these different things going. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of money going out the window. And that's where we get in, I think, where we get into a bit of a trouble. You know, and if people agree, fine. If they disagree, that's fine too. But that's kind of what I see. And if we have to consolidate things, you know, it's like if a business is in trouble, you don't just go all over the place. You bring everything into, you know, kind of wrangle it in a little bit to save these costs. So that's what I would like to look at, is to say, you know what, let's slow the buggy down a little bit here, because we're just keeping on going and going and going. And with that being said, I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Quick question. The last meeting we had, Andrew, the guy up there, he did do a good job on getting them signs up. It was probably less than a week and a half that he put those signs up. So we got to give him credit for taking care of that, stepping up to the plate.
That's good to hear, you know, and I knew that was going to take place, and he took care of it, Andrew Bremseth, regarding the signs at the on Channing there, where the Hillcrest School is. Mike had brought that up, and they got some slower speed signs there, which they took care of right away. So,
I have another question
Yep.
for you. When the city council has their meeting that's recorded, what about these meetings that the city heads have and stuff like that, that's public meetings, are those recorded also?
like the committee as a whole, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, they are.
Are those available on
I believe they are, aren't they? Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a public meeting that, you know, and like here tonight, you know, we can have as many council members here as possible. It's an open meeting. So I double checked that too, because I heard some scuttlebutt that might not be the case. So, but now we're all good. Yes.
The road out in front of the marketplace out there,
Mm-hmm.
that was done there, did that have to be done too, or was that paid by the state, or why was that done?
You know, that was, there again, before me. You know, Scott maybe could answer that. He was on the council before me. He just walked in, so thanks for coming, Scott. And but if you want to respond to that, please do so. You know, in front of on Union there.
Yeah, the marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, farmer's market, that road, you know, we're talking about roads in town
Mm-hmm.
that need to be done. Well, why did that road have to be done? Because to me it was okay, but we got the market there. Did it have to do with maybe the Stanton project? Did that have something to do with it?
You know, I don't know. I think
Why spend money there when we need to spend money other places?
Right. And I think what, you know, the other thing too is you just keep going farther south on Union, and it's like, whoa, you know, you're gonna.
Didn't the state redo that road, make that wider years ago, you know, a few years
Yeah, they
ago?
did.
Then they come back and then they close
Yeah.
that up?
Yeah.
I mean,
And
Was it the state though that did it?
the state did it first.
That widened it, I think.
Widened it up, put that lane in.
That was quite a while ago.
Well, who paid for this out here?
I think part of it was state money. I'm sure, Scott, how was that divided out then?
It was
Mostly state? Okay. You know, and go ahead, Kathy.
I'm just wondering, are there complaints about these little, I don't know what they call them, but these little things that butt out?
Those little bump outs like that?
They widen the street and then they put those in, so you almost get a little bottleneck. And then if there are people going from the Spees deal over wanting to cross to the market, then they're going back and forth, and there's traffic backing up on Lincoln, and you can't get out from behind Service Food because people are just kind of going back and forth and taking their time. I mean, these seem to be really hindrances to any kind of traffic flow.
You know, I kind of did notice that after it first got done. You know, I mean, it was that one day I was really kind of surprised. It was backed up to US Bank.
Right.
And that was a pretty good backup, you know, on something like that. I don't know. Let's see what it's going to be like this summer, too. You know, I think that was a summertime thing. I don't know if it's, you know, busier in the summer than the winter, if that's going to make any difference on it. I think with, you know, it's more difficult, I would think, to remove snow for the plows. You know, I think it would be very difficult for that. I haven't really looked at it that close, if the curbing was, you know, all banged up yet or not. So I don't know about that. But, you know, the other things too, and I think it was still up last weekend, but even on the railing there in the parking lot area where the sidewalk goes, you know, it's things like this that I think I see is that, and I know others saw it because they brought it to my attention, and they actually brought it to the city hall's attention. I think it was still last weekend, there was Christmas decorations out there. You know, we got to jump on these things. You know, people are going to start coming into town, and we're going to see that. And, you know, it was garland with red bows. And, you know, I know that somebody just happened to be, I think they were out eating and reached out to somebody at the chamber, and they were told there. And then I think that was supposed to be done. And I haven't looked. I don't know if it's still there or not, but maybe it's done by now. But it's things like this is what kind of bothers me is we're always looking for somebody else to do something. That bothers me. You know what? If I see weeds growing in a curb on Main Street that are 1.5 feet high, if I was the business or in that area, I'm going to pull those weeds because it makes my business look bad. It comes back to pride in what you do, as far as pride in ownership or pride of your business. We need to get back to that. I don't like to hear it's not my job description. You know, we're in this together, you know? And that's the thing that I want us to kind of get back to. Hey, it's not necessarily his job or her job or my job, but hey, if something doesn't look right, maybe we should just do that. It's kind of the right thing to do. You know, I want to get back to kind of the basics here of, you know, let's get our ethics back and what the right thing to do is. Just because something might be legal on the law side of things doesn't mean it's right ethically. And we've really departed on that. And that really bothers me. And, you know, it comes down to whatever belief you are. But for me, if I go for something, if it's just because of the law and it's okay, but maybe it's a little iffy on the ethics part, I'm going to side with the ethics because I got one person that I got to answer to, and it's not even a person. So that's the way I kind of make my decisions on that. Also, too, there was a fellow that I had listened to him, and he said, you know, I can't remember what his daughter's name was. Let's just say her name was Heidi. And he says, I decide the Heidi decision. And somebody said, well, what does that mean? Well, if I would want my daughter to know this, or if I would want my daughter not to know this, what's the right thing to do? What would Heidi want me to do? What would I want to do for my own family or my daughter? You know, let's start thinking like this. It's going to be a better place here. You know, and I'm not trying to, you know, paint rainbows and sparkles and all that stuff, but we got to start someplace. And when I see that not happening or it gets ugly, then I think, hey, you know what? We got to really take it easy here. We got to think about things, how we're going to proceed. But that's kind of where I'm at with that. So, you know, if there's weeds growing out here, hey, somebody, if you're walking by, pull them. You know, I still remember going to it was a homecoming parade. sitting on the curb in the Shopco lot, looking across the way, and there was a student that was out of class to go to the parade, and I couldn't hardly see him because the weeds were so high, and he was sitting on the curb. And I thought, that's unbelievable. And here we're having a parade. These are things that we got to look at. And when I was a kid, those things were taken care of. I don't remember seeing things like that. And I was pretty observant as a kid, too.
It's funny you mention that. It's like I said, we live on the corner of Stanton and Broadway.
If talk a little bit louder, then everybody can hear you.
I live on Stanton and Broadway, and as you go south, it's a dead end, okay? And my folks, I lived there, I bought it from my folks, we bought it from my folks in 2010, but it had been abandoned. It was city property. We kept on mowing it, and people would go down there and use it as a park. They would launch kayaks. Now, once they changed it, they put the riprap in. Now you can't launch kayaks. I wish there was just a little access where you could put a kayak in, because a lot of people use that. A lot of people go down there and fish. Just enjoy it.
And it's these little things that make a difference in people's lives. It can be just tiny, and that makes differences. So that's, it's not these big things that are really these earth movers. It's these little things that people appreciate and what they want too. So did we get off track on something? I don't know.
I did. I got away from the school stuff.
So anyway, go ahead, Mike.
Another question. Can you compile a list of all these extra expenses that we get, like what it costs the taxpayers to have the Devil Lake Golf Course, what it costs us extra to have and how many times the ice arena is used? I mean, because it's all taxpayers' money that funded that, but you only get certain times of the year that you can use it, and most of the time it's in the dark of the night.
Right now.
I mean, and what about the Bigwood Center? I mean, there's gotta be more projects than just them three that the city owns that is costing us taxpayers' money. They should be able to carry themselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's major money, Yeah, that's going to be your lead here. I just want to say this, when it comes to the arena, that, was just another topic that came up the last meeting was, they need to hire a maintenance person for that, to run this, and how the salary was to be divided and this and that. And, I know Anthony was asking, wasn't it Anthony, Laura, and Scott asking how that was divided up? And, it was hard. There wasn't any number because it wasn't done yet. It's an expense. I know that the city was going to be responsible for 20% of this person's salary. And then it was divided up amongst, I think, the Hockey Association and the school, wasn't it? Three-way or something like that. But I think the city's responsibility was going to be 20% of that person's salary. And I think it was also 20% of the benefit package, too, that this person was going to get. As far as the Bigwood Center, the way... I don't think the city should have it. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Why do we have it?
Well, I think because we basically didn't kind of default and it came back to the city. Scott? So that was before Scott too, but.
It didn't just get built 4 years ago. It was
No.
built a long time ago.
Right.
People wanted it a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't, and that too, that was another thing too, if I remember right. I don't know if that really passed.
I'm gonna interrupt you.
Yeah.
When we had a mayor named Fergus.
Yep.
That was a big deal at that time, and
Yep.
The biggest thing was that you couldn't find people to work.
Yeah. And, I don't know how it came about. I was gone too for a while from this community for about 10, 12 years. So before moving back, but, I just think right now it's a huge, huge expense for us. And, you put money into it to keep it, up, and there's a certain point where, what do you do? If you could find a buyer for it, that'd be great. And I know other people, have told me the same thing. So, Mark, you start talking.
Thank you. I appreciate the new council's direction. I hope some of the previous council members take lead to this new direction. I've listened closely tonight. I think the new council in the last election cycle has brought to the attention to the council roads and infrastructure. The citizens have been asking for it for years. And the common response is, we'll get back to you. Open meetings has been one of my priorities for 3 years. I've been kicked off my speaking in front of Ben before. The people need to approach your council members and the mayor and the administrator. As these meetings are being held, it's your voice that's going to carry it. Not one council person, not one person, not one person. You got to pound on these people. No different than in our education, no different than in our churches. I question the roundabouts, the yin yang. They're under-engineered. Going the south roundabout, coming out of RDO, they keep knocking over the streetlights. They're under-engineered for large traffic. In regards to the one by the YMCA, I appreciate coming off 110. But when you open up that faucet at the peak times of the year, or the peak times of the day, morning, lunch, and going home, it's the same time they're busy at the school, so that traffic's going to get jacked there. Traffic's going to get jacked coming off 110. That traffic's not going to stop. It's going to get worse. I'm not a proponent of the roundabouts. It's ruined Cannon Falls off I-35. The cities have gone broke on that exit. And I'm not impressed with the state of Minnesota's Department of Transportation redoing these exits. They're backwards. They need to redo them, just rebuild them the way they are. The Bigwood Event Center, prior to COVID-19, the city lost about $800 to $1 million on that thing. The money they invested, the money they spent. A couple years later then, they reopen it. 2021, they spent $94,000 on the Bigwood Event Center. 2022, they spent $350,000 on the Bigwood Event Center. This year, they're budgeting $277,000. I don't have a breakdown of the revenue that's generated off that, but I know where it's going to come from. The taxpayer hasn't been.
All that money.
Sorry?
Upkeep in the building need, what are they doing with all that money?
What do they do with it? Well,
We invested into that building, how much?
well,
Is it broken? I mean,
well, in 2022, they put in a new IT communications. Not impressed with the one here. They put the same one over there. This year, last year they hired a consultant and employees. I haven't seen the revenue numbers yet. I agree, it should be sold. It's not public business.
So what are the taxpayers paying? What are the taxpayers getting for their money?
Have you been to the convention center?
Yeah, I have,
How many times?
not very often.
Okay, that's what you get out of it.
We get to vote though.
Pardon me?
We get to go vote out there.
You get to vote, and I think it was voted down how many times before the council pushed it through? No different than the ice arena. That was voted down many times and poorly mismanaged.
I think I remember a little different. I don't think we got to vote on it. We got to vote how we're gonna pay for it.
So the Bigwood Event Center, they've lost $800 to $1 million when they invested it before they had the COVID. Now they spent another $600,000. Okay, we have 3 weddings and 6 events. I used to go there all the time for conventions. Those conventions have moved. They don't even come back there. Go to America Inn or someplace else.
I've criticized the city in the past too about the retreat that the council members take. No disrespect to my friend Al, it's not his position to tell me what I want. That retreat should have been open to the city, constituents. What is important to you? And that's the purpose of these meetings. You have to tell the city what you want. The council can come up with their wishes and dreams as they have for the last 10 years. And what do you have?
When I've talked to my council person about an issue that I've been Spencer, something new we hear, oh, this big project is coming and they're gonna do it, and I've called to talk about it. And it's, well, that decision was made a long time ago.
That's correct.
It's too late to, we aren't dealing with that now. All that.
Yeah, it's no different than, Minnesota Department of Transportation out there on the freeway exits. It's a cluster. We talked about the riverfront with the little embankments coming out. If I had a restaurant or business on Main Street and the semis were trying to deliver me freight, and you have those, I told Andrew day one when they designed that with those little walkouts, the duck still has so many steps from the east side of the road to the west side of the road. Doesn't matter if you're in Buckman or not. You've just ruined the traffic going up north. Is that North Union? Going north and south? I believe there's more traffic driving on that road than there are people crossing it, even during the peak season.
I think that was some engineer's dream that designed that.
But the city bought it. And I've had contentions with some members because they drew it up. We voted for it. I talked to Bolt and Minky personally, and I asked them, you're a very good company. You probably have business around the world. But are you drawing the parking lot behind Viking Cafe with the Japanese software? And he looked at me and says, what do you mean? I said, we live in Minnesota. People drive four-door pickups. Sometimes they have dualies. They have a livestock trailer. They may have a boat, a pontoon. How are they going to get in there? It's not being built for a three-seat electric vehicle that they drive in Japan. He didn't have much to say.
Snow removal is a real headache too.
Sorry?
Snow removal is a real headache too. They used to push it over the bank. Now they gotta haul it all out.
I lost the bet because last year I thought for sure that the snowplow driver would just, I'm gonna knock this out so it's done for the rest of the year.
Some would say that maybe this is related to Agenda 2030, and they like to have walkable cities, and they don't really want our big cars and things making a mess. And they want us in EVs that don't work in this weather.
I agree with that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist,
It's not a conspiracy.
but at the same time, we have to pay attention to what's going on. Don't let me start talking about walls in our schools. Don't let me go there.
North Union Avenue is a Minnesota street or Minnesota highway also. It's a state highway.
Yeah.
As well as being North Union Avenue. So we get traffic in there all the time. And the cops are going back and forth, which I think is great.
Well, the only hope we have as citizens to continue to talk to the council people and administrator and bring these things up. I commend them for their streets and infrastructure issues. That is the hugest thing. And I talked to a council member the other day and I said, can you remember Flint, Michigan? Oh, there was mistakes made there. Well, we are in the middle of mistakes here in Fergus Falls. Water and infrastructure here is in bad condition. Town's 150 years old. There are arteries and intestinal tracts that are 150 years old. I've seen them come out of Main Street, and there is no sewer line anymore. It's running through mud. The pipes are gone. And the maintenance is terrible. I did a quick survey the other day. The city has let me catch up to my notes. Al tells me the city has a total of 120 miles. I'm assuming that 120 miles has water and sewer, except around Lake Alice. I'm sorry.
Of roads.
Roads.
116 miles, I believe, of roads in the city limits.
To redo 120 miles of water and streets in any city, it's going to cost about $800 million. I'll just take 10% of that or 20% of that on an annual basis, every 5 years basis, every 10-year basis, to do the oldest part first and work your way out. $800 million. On an annual basis, I'm going to go back to last election. On an annual basis, the city spends about $2.73 million more a year than cities equivalent of our size. If you look past the 10 years and you add transit and economic development, studies, overspending, convention center, riverfront, Riverfront 2, the bridge, RTC, Ice Arena. Over the last 10 years, they spent about $47 million more than they should have. I've only lived here 5 years. You guys have lived here longer. I know who's paying for this.
You know, Mark, I respect you. That's your opinion.
It is my opinion, but
there are some things that are well used. That ice arena, I know that was a big conflict of interest when it was built. But if you are ever up there and are you seeing the use of it and our youth, we have to have something for our youth.
And I will agree with that. But it was under-engineered, poorly planned, and poorly managed.
Well, I'm not going to touch that because I don't have the expertise to.
I do, because I talk to the contractors who work on it all the time. And that's the division of the house today when the school has to hire someone to run it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And the same thing with the airport. Yeah. It's been run to the ground. As they came out of the last meeting with the council's retreat, we better take care of the assets we have. I have the budget. I know what they're going to spend in the next, well, this year, their capital expenditures, and some of them are already in the budget, don't get me wrong. But this year alone, right now, based on the 2023 budget, and the last three things that they approved at the council meeting, a $750 roundabout, $650 roundabout, $350 in TIF, they're going to spend about $19 million this year.
But that's not for the streets and towns?
Well, the streets are in there. I don't have it broken down. I'm just telling you that it's $19 million. When you talk about streets are $3.8 million this year, but is that streets and infrastructure or just streets? These are bullet points by bucket. Airport, $1.8 million. A fence, $40,000. RTC Phase 2, $1.7 million. Typical allotment every year that they update equipment, $750,000. Golf course, stormwater, $50,000. Riverfront, $5.2 million. Sewer, $1.74 million. Storm, $400,000. The streets, $385,000, and water, $1.6 million. Some of those are budgeted. Don't get me wrong, but that's $18 million.
Is that why our property taxes double?
That is part of it, yes. You have two issues with your real estate taxes. Number one, the valuations based on sales, and the taxing authority of the city, school, and the state. I'm going to get off my financial wisdom, or preach, however you want to call it.
I just kind of reviewed the budget there, and let's see,
Can you talk up?
Okay, I had reviewed that online, the budget, and for Stanton, for the assessed, or property assessed one, there was only one in there, was water or sewer, that had only special assessment. But it's labeled at $315,000 or plus, 300,000 plus. Isn't it on there, or special assessments? Because it was only in the one category that had 80,000 special assessments
Right.
standing for the.
These are the budget numbers. These do not reflect the income, be it taxes, special assessments,
Okay.
state assessments.
It was a question. I didn't-
Yep.
I didn't-
I didn't look at the income side of this nor different as I did not on the Bigwood
There
Center.
was only showing a one time where it's
Yep.
special assessment, but the other ones. Okay. I'm just curious.
Again, thank you for coming. You have to talk to your council people and Andrew Brumseth. Very, very important. But you then have to mandate an answer.
I appreciate the opportunity to come here. I feel bad because I wasn't at the last one to speak up. I appreciate the people responsible. When it comes to the fact of using this room, this is our room as the people of Fergus Falls.
Right.
I don't know what they're trying to do, but I want Scott, Laura, Al, take that back to them and tell them it's our room.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I mean, I agree 100% on that. This is the people's room, and this is the people's building, and I think that that's very true. And, you know, I think that if we need to meet here one more time or whatever, but we are looking at other venues too in the future, because we don't want this to be silenced. We want people to come and talk and have these ideas and to express their opinions and their ideas.
Maybe we could use a Bigwood Center.
I was gonna say that too.
I was thinking we could use the aquatic center, but you don't want to see me in a skimpy bathing suit.
No,
But no-
I'm gonna go back. I got grandkids. I'm gonna go back to the pool. I don't care what they call it.
Yeah.
But I know families take their kids to Wapaton
Yeah.
because they have a pool.
Yeah,
They're gonna spend some money when they're over in Wapaton.
I agree with you.
The
That-
rumor on the street is that's closing. I have not validated that.
Wappington or Breckenridge?
They lose about 150 grand a year there. Is that right or wrong? That's the taxpayer's decision.
We need investment in our youth if we don't have something for our youth. The one question I have is, we're putting in a splash pad down here and they're over here. If we're building a pool, that's where the splash pad belongs. Over here, there's gonna be no supervision. You know, up at the pool, there will be supervision.
I agree with you. It's up to the citizens to vote yes or no. But I apologize. I am a financial nut. I eat and live financial statements. It's all I do.
Well, I didn't get a chance to vote on the splash pad down here, so.
Just a second, Bob. So I'm not sexy guy. I mean, I look at numbers, and I would love to own a Challenger 300. But that aircraft's about $200 million. I don't know if I can afford that. So what they've come out with in the last retreat is that they better take care of the assets they have, better manage them, because the airport's terrible, the convention center's terrible. I don't know how long it's going to take Gary Spees outhouse to, out the riverfront to take care of itself. I don't know. Al, I'm done. Thank you very much. Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we've talked a range of subjects tonight, from ideologies in the schools and content to different projects in the city. And I'm a remedy guy, and I think one of the best remedies that this city could have is to have more transparency, and for the city council to create a conduit where the citizenry can get together just like we are now. But you can use other creative ideas to open it up so that all these things aren't just rammed down our throats.
Well, I think right now, let's take note of the council people that are here. and the ones that are not.
Yeah, where's our mayor? You would think that this would be a.
Hey, Al?
The new council people are great, thank you.
I just have one thing to say, Mark talks about going over to Wahpeton and stuff. Well, there's one thing you gotta remember when you drive through Wahpeton, there's a gas station in Foxhole that's 20 cents cheaper than the gas in Fergus. And you keep going and it's still 20 cents cheaper over there. So if you're gonna save 20 cents going that way, you know darn well you're gonna fill up before you come this way.
Mike Mortensen, I can't speak to the gas. But,
I add one thing.
yeah, go ahead.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
9 years ago, I moved here to this town with my wife and my 3 young daughters at the time. And my next door neighbor walked next door, good fence neighbor. Anybody in here knows what a fence neighbor is? And he says to me, he says, "What do you move to Fergus Falls for?" And I said, "Well," I said, "what do you mean by that question?" I said, "It seems kind of loaded." And he says, "Well, people either move here to die or they move here for work." And I said, "Well, I moved here for work." And I said, "To raise my family." And if we don't start bringing things back into this community, like what Mark's talking about with the aquatic center, that ice arena that you guys are griping about up there, those young people, as soon as they graduate high school, peace out, they're gone. 2 out of my 3 daughters are gone, and they will never come back to this town. One, the only reason she's here is because she got a state job in this town. Other than that, she would have been gone too. So unless we have something, those shiny things, which Al knows very well that I agree with him on, that we do need to take care of infrastructure. But without those shiny things, we're not gonna attract the young people to this town. We've lost retail, we have no industry in this town, we have nothing to support those young people coming in here. The only benefit that we have right now is that in the last 3 years, you've seen a majority of the workforce being able to work from home. So right now, we're kind of stable. If I look at what the population of Fergus Falls was when I moved here 9 years ago versus now, we're up or down, what, a couple hundred in the last 10 years?
Yeah, but, a lot of that's annexation too.
Right, so if you think about it, we're not keeping people here, and we're certainly not attracting new people.
I think
It was the same thing when we moved here.
Yeah, and, my family moved here in '67, and, when I was a kid, I didn't think there was anything to do in this town. And I will say, I think we maybe had more things to do than what there is now.
Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with change of economy too.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of adults in the family that now have to work, all kinds of things like that. Retail has completely changed. We order everything online. We don't go to the mall anymore. I mean, I'm a kid of the 80s, the late 70s and the 80s. So I grew up, where did you hang out? You went out to the mall. We were all mall rats,
What the Godfather.
Yeah, exactly. Go have a slice of pizza and go play at the arcade or whatever it is. All that stuff is gone now, which I don't want to see a town that's built on retail anyway. I grew up in Grand Forks, North Dakota. That whole damn town is built on retail. And it was built on the Canadian trade and what the Canadian dollar was. And now that the Canadian dollar isn't worth a damn, Grand Forks is feeling the pinch on it. Well, we can't depend on retail in this town either. We have to figure out something that's going to draw somebody here. We need a 3M or something like that to be able to put people back into this town.
I agree with you. 100%. You are.
Or either that, or we need to convince Kenny Nelson to move for Falls instead of being in Burrow.
Yeah. And like you said, times have changed drastically. Our entertainment was ride your bike out to Pebble Lake and go swimming. Or, you do things like that. And, maybe that's what hurts me a little bit too, is in some of my ideas that I like that because it was so much fun. We have all these trails. We got a trail that goes right to Pebble Lake. It's a great place to be. I remember playing Frisbee and you remember playing hacky sack, right?
Unfortunately, I don't get it, but yes.
Yes. But it's things like that.
How many of you were here last meeting? Raise your hand. Did you see when Al said, "Sit down, Mike, be quiet" last meeting? I have been waiting a month to say, "Al, sit down and be quiet." You know that? So he deserved that. You know that? But I want to say just a couple of things. Mike Mortensen here, just a private citizen, not a council member, nothing like that. But one of the things I think I see here is a lot of the greatness of Fergus Falls is in this room here tonight. You're here. You're engaged. You're talking about things about our community, from to the kids, to the roads, to other things. There's concerns in this room, and that's where greatness comes out of this city, is right here. There's other people in this city sitting at home tonight. They don't care what happens to the city. Everyone in this room cares. The other thing I want to say is, Al, I am so impressed with you tonight, the way that you've handled yourself and the way that you've done things here. You are a great addition. Yeah, but this city is better. This city is better, and these meetings would not happen if it had not been for you. And so that's tremendous.
And that, I wanted to say that was, and if you don't know it, that was one of my campaign promises I wanted to make and bring forward. I talked to Bob Noah many times about these nights like this. And very important to people. And the resident of this city has a voice to always remember that. You know, if you see what goes on at these council meetings, I have a voice, but you know what? It's not always listened to, but I have a voice, and I can be your voice too in Ward 3. So keep that in mind. That's why I did this. I want to see our city grow and prosper and get industry and business and keep what we got. You know, I just had the other day a great conversation with somebody on Main Street, a store that is having a tough time. And you know what? Yeah, it hurts them, but I felt really, really bad for them. And I thought, you know what? You're trying to make a difference here. We got to do something to keep you here and keep you going. You know, people like that need help. In my opinion, we don't need to give somebody $325,000 in TIF money that makes over $7 million a year.
What is TIF?
Tax increment financing.
So-
Well, we could use a bakery. We
Yeah.
could- Maybe we could have helped them.
Yeah.
Well, we maybe could have helped Dragonfly so they didn't have to go out of business.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things like that, you guys. It's these little things, you know, if we can't have big retailers, if we can keep some of these smaller ones going, that would be great. You know, I'm sorry, Mike. I'll let it go back to you.
Well, I had you sit down, but you're sitting on my coat, so
I
I
know.
don't know. And next to my wife, so I'm watching you, you know?
Everybody doesn't have this.
Yeah. For those of you that are going to hear this online, wherever out in the world, different things, and if you didn't hear Mr. Kramer talk tonight, let me just say this to you. He talked about his love of this city. He talked about his love of making change. He talked about making Fergus Falls the best that it can be. And that's what he talked about, if you didn't hear that tonight. And that's why he got not a standing ovation yet. He got an applause for what he did. The other thing I want to reach out to is we have Laura Jobe, a council member here, and we have Scott Kwame, a council member here. If you don't realize how tough that is to walk in a setting like this, sit down where Scott is, sit down where Laura is, and just take whatever's going to come, I tell you what, they need a round of applause tonight too. I had a great conversation with Scott Kwame today, council member sitting here, and I think we had a great conversation. We talked about a lot of things, and to see him here tonight after the meeting they had on Monday is a great testament to you, Scott. And I think you care about our city very, very much, and I think you're going to continue to do the things that you can for our city. So I want to say that publicly here today.
Thanks, Scott.
One of the things I want to say, though, is I want to talk just a little bit about transparency. I'm just a citizen here, but I had some conversations with the city here over the last few days about this venue, about having it here, and about some promotion of this venue. And what I'd been waiting for last time, we had city administrator here, we had some of the staff here, we had a few more council members here, and they were engaged and ready to talk to the community. Somewhere between last month and this this month, that has declined. And so what I had last month is we had them put a flyer on the Facebook. They put also another heading on their Facebook to get people engaged to come to this. As of today, I talked to them at 1 o'clock today, and I said, why don't we have it on the Facebook? People are calling and reaching out to us saying, is the meeting tonight? Is it not tonight? And I got resistance. And I got resistance from somewhere, and I don't know where it is, but they kind of said, well, we've kind of decided not to put some things on Facebook that maybe aren't community orientated or community set. And I tried to, and I don't really want to talk bad about them here, and I don't want to do that, but transparency needs to be had by everyone when we walk in this room. I said, did the communications director put it on there? No. I said to another one, are you going to put it on there for us, please? We've got people interested. No. I said, could you find out from the city administrator why this is not put on Facebook? This is a community message. And I said, have him call me immediately. And as of tonight at 8 o'clock, I never got a call. And so I don't want to go down that road really a lot, but I want you to realize that when Al talks about us maybe moving the venue or talks about us maybe having some support, we did not get that support tonight. We didn't get it. And that's troubling to me as a citizen. It's not Scott's fault. It's not Laura's fault. It's not Al's fault. We don't know where it is, but that's troubling to me as a citizen and as a businessman in this town, that I called in and I didn't get that answers to that. So I'm going to leave it at that. We're not going to.
That's what troubles me too, and that's why I wonder when we have a concern, how much good can one contacting my council person? I know he agrees.
Yeah.
Is there an undercurrent just like in the federal government?
Yeah. So
Deep state.
here's what I would say to you. I won't go to the deep state, but I will say this. This meeting that was last time and this meeting this time is having an impact on the city. It's having an impact on the city. And they are looking at this from probably a couple of ways. One, do we engage and kind of go with this, or do we pull away from doing this? And my view of it tonight, just as a citizen, is they pulled away. And so what I would say is the greatness of people in this room are going to change this community by walking into these chambers, having these council members hear you, having this recorded, heard by everybody around the area and around the state. Everything here is online. That's how this city will grow to be a great city, and that's how the administration will hear, and I think you'll see the change you want. It can't happen in 2 meetings, but it can happen in 6 and 7. So I encourage all of you to continue to come. I encourage you to tell other people, because this is having an impact on your city like you've not seen in over a decade. Yes. Yep.
Is there some legal reason as to why they can refuse to have this take place here?
You know, here's the thing that I'll say. I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I'm a chiropractor, so I'm not an attorney. But I do know that when Al and I sat down with the administration and the city attorney, they were very excited about doing this. They encouraged it to be in these chambers. You'd agree, right, Al? They encouraged us to do this and to speak about it. I don't know where that changed in the second meeting. I don't know. So I'm just saying to the community, transparency is everything to me. Integrity, character, everything is to me about that. And I'm just telling you what happened today, and we'll see what the third meeting brings. Maybe they come back to the table, but the only way they hear it is being said here tonight out into the public. So, yes, Pete.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, relative to what you're talking about, before we rush to go to another venue, I think one of the prerequisites would be that we have the ability to continue to record and project this. You know, if we go to some place that we can't do that, that could be a motivation possibly for not letting us be here. But I think that's a very important part of the whole process.
Pete, I agree with you. Somebody in Seoul, Korea can watch this tomorrow. Somebody can watch it wherever. People will hear the great things we're going to do and some of the things we need to be fixed. I agree with that. I think this is a great venue for us because what it does, it allows a private citizen to come into kind of this unknown territory that we're a little nervous about without having 10 people sit up in front of you and kind of look at you. This gives you a venue where you can sit in the chambers and talk about things that are important, and I think the recording is that. So what I would ask everybody here tonight, raise your hand if you'd like to stay in this setting and continue to do this next month, and let's just see where it goes, or if you'd like to move to a different setting. If you'd like to stay here, raise your hands. Yeah, we're going to stay here. We're going to stay here until we're unwelcome, and if we're unwelcome, then that's a bigger issue. But we were allowed to be here tonight. I want to give kudos to the city for that. They opened the door, they allowed us to be here, and I don't know if they had to.
What else can we do? Like, is calling in to somebody, you know, city administrator's office or whatever to give support?
I tell you, just me knowing, because I do business with the city, I talk with the city, I do lots of things with the city, and it's just sometimes goes here. You have Scott Kwame, Laura Job, and Al sitting here tonight. You have over a third, or about a third of the council right here, and that is the greatest impact you can have on the city. I really believe this is where everything comes from. I believe you could call your council member, email them, which I don't want to discourage, but it comes right here. I assure you the city will listen to this today, and they will hear what I said here tonight. They will. I guarantee you they will. Yeah, Pete.
Yeah, I just had one more comment, and this is kind of for the benefit of the council members too. But here and in the past, it's come up numerous times that people find out about what the city's going to be doing, and then you start asking questions and delving into it, and like the comment was made tonight is, oh, it's too late for that, we've already committed money, we've already had engineering studies, you know, we bought the land and all this stuff. And I think one of the big problems with the frustration of people not having input is that they're not transparent about what their plans are. And if you're gonna spend millions of dollars on a project, to me, it is not unreasonable to expect that at the early stages of their thoughts, that they at least throw the ideas out to the public and get the input before you make such a commitment that there's no turning back. Because people don't feel like they've got a thing to say about anything.
Pete, I agree 100%, and that's what's wrong with our country at times, that's what's wrong with our county, and that's what's wrong with our city. And that's why I say tonight, this is the greatness of our city sitting right here tonight, because we are making an impact, and what will happen is you'll see these council members keep coming back, maybe a different one each time, but what they're going to start to talk about is you'll see some of them get comfortable here, and they'll start to say, hey, we're looking at doing this down the road. What do you guys think? You're going to see some of that start to develop. We're on the kind of the backside catching up right now, but I think as you see this go along, you'll see projects being talked about well in advance, and they'll be kind of developed out of this meeting. They will be. I believe that. So I don't want to take you more. Yeah.
I heard a lot of different issues here tonight, ton of them. And some were individual, some were citywide, whatever. But I think what we need to do is everybody here write your top two and figure out which ones we work on. And then you can go as a group and you get those done. So I think you look at maybe just the top two or three and that those out, and then you can move forward with it.
You know, and I agree, and I'm gonna leave it to Al. He's the mastermind, but I do know that would be a way to get things moving in the city. I'm not going to take any more time. It's after 8 o'clock. We're going to cancel out. I'm going to give it to Al. I appreciate listening to me.
Yeah, I didn't hear what he said.
Transparency.
Yeah.
Secrets are live.
What he was telling me, and I'll tell you all. Thank Peg Access for being here tonight. And that's pretty tough. And that's pretty tough to get a compliment out of Layton.
Al, I just want to say one thing. If you follow the city and you follow the county, if they don't like to do something or they don't want to do anything, all they have to do is reject the bid.
Yep. That's what I've heard too. So,
So if the bid comes in, so we'll say the aquatic center comes in, the bid's $20 million, they don't have to do it.
right.
You never have to do anything.
You know, and even if I'm the lone council member that says something like, no, it's already done and you can't do anything about it, I'm not the authority on it. You know, not one person, and things aren't done until it's done. That's what I've always been told. But you know, that's another conversation for another meeting. If you would like, there are note cards up here with pens. Write down your top 2. If that sounds familiar, it kind of sounds what I said earlier, what that city did. You know, maybe 3 ideas from these special interest groups. You're the special interest group this time. Write down your top 2 things, what you want to do. And then we can look those over and we can sure give those, we'll give them to the city. You know, we want to end on a positive note. Yeah. And we're going to have Mike talk, I guess.
Okay, Al, if you go back and Mark talks about the kids, right?
Yeah.
When I was in high school, and that was a few years ago, because I'm between you and your brother, the YMCA was down in the old Nazarene Church, which was just to the east of Bjorn's Heating. And anybody could go in there anytime you wanted. You could play pool. You could do whatever you want in there. And that place was most of the time always full, and that was run by Cliff Maxwell.
And he was a great guy, old Cliff Maxwell.
You betcha. And then they moved it out, and they moved it a long ways away from the people on the south side of town. And that was a huge, in my opinion, that was a huge mistake. But then when they built the De Lagoon Park out there, anybody that was a non-resident had to pay $25 a year in order to play out there. And that disappeared over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you still got to take care of those kids. And
I agree. You know, the kids have to be taken care of course. I mean, that's without saying. But you know what? We all need to be taken care of too. You know, like I think I had said in one of my, I don't know when I said it, but I'll say it again here. We all have a future. If you're 2 or if you're 92, we all have a future. You know, I had one gal in my neighborhood say, Al, I'm going to have to move. Why? Because my property tax, I can't afford it anymore. And she was a retired person, beautiful home, well kept, and she had unbelievable pride of ownership. And she was afraid she's going to lose her house because she can't, and she's going to have to move and sell it because she can't afford the tax. She's on a completely fixed income. To me, that's tragic. And that property tax just keeps going up. And it might level out, I think, this year, but then wait, it'll go up again, you know. And that's what, like I told her, I feel bad for you because you're being punished for something that you didn't do. That's not fair. So, go ahead, Mike.
I'll end on a positive note.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You know, Leighton's, the positive note, Leighton is not going to speak anymore tonight, and you're not going to come up here and try to kick me off the podium here. But I do appreciate everybody coming. Write down, come on up, write that down. We'll get out of here as quick as we can so the city can close up. We appreciate the venue here tonight, and we appreciate them helping us out. Thanks, you guys.